March 4, 1944. The skies over Berlin thundered with the roar of engines. For the first time, hundreds of American bombers crossed deep into the heart of Nazi Germany, without fear of being abandoned by their escorts. Above them soared sleek silver fighters with long noses, cutting through the cold air at over 400 miles per hour, the P-51 Mustangs. The Luftwaffe pilots couldn't believe what they were seeing. The Americans were not supposed to be here, not this deep, not with escorts. And yet, on that single day, over 80 German fighters would be destroyed. The legend of the P-51 Mustang and its impossible 1,650-mile range was born. Before the P-51 Mustang, American bomber crews faced a nightmare in the skies over Europe. The B-17 Flying Fortress and B-24 Liberator were powerful machines, but there was one fatal flaw. They could not defend themselves deep inside enemy territory. The escort fighters, P-47 Thunderbolts and P-38 Lightnings, could only fly a few hundred miles before turning back. Beyond that, bomber formations were on their own, and the Luftwaffe knew it. Once the escorts turned home, German fighters attacked in coordinated waves. Squadrons of Messerschmitt Bf-109s and Focke-Wulf 190s tore through unprotected bombers. In late 1943, American bomber crews were suffering unsustainable losses, sometimes 20% in a single mission. Berlin was considered untouchable by daylight bombers. Every time the Americans tried to reach the German capital, hundreds of airmen didn't return. The U.S. Army Air Forces desperately needed a miracle, a fighter that could fly 1,500 miles, fight, and still come home. That miracle was about to be built.
In 1940, the British approached North American aviation with a request: build a new fighter for the Royal Air Force, fast. Within just 117 days, engineers rolled out the prototype that would become the P-51 Mustang. But early Mustangs were not extraordinary. They used an American Allison engine that performed poorly at high altitudes. The British, however, had an idea. They installed the legendary Rolls-Royce Merlin engine, the same power plant that gave the Spitfire its wings. The transformation was stunning. The new Mustang could climb faster, fly higher, and travel farther than anything in the sky. With the Packard-built Merlin engine, the American P-51D version achieved a range of 1,650 miles with drug tanks, enough to escort bombers all the way to Berlin and back. For the first time, the U.S. had a true long-range escort fighter that could go the distance. The Germans had no idea what was coming.
March 4, 1944, the first daylight bombing raid on Berlin. The 8th Air Force launched over 600 bombers, escorted by P-51 Mustangs from England. For the Luftwaffe, this was supposed to be another massacre, a chance to destroy helpless bombers. But when the first wave of German fighters approached the American formations, something was different. They saw silver fighters, Mustangs, flying alongside the bombers. The Germans thought, impossible, they shouldn't be here. Yet there they were, diving straight into combat over Berlin itself. The Luftwaffe tried to engage, but the Mustangs were faster, higher, and deadlier. Their pilots, like Colonel Donald Blakeslee and Major James Goodson, tore through German formations. The sky above Berlin became a graveyard of burning Messerschmitts. By the end of the day, over 80 Luftwaffe fighters were downed. The Germans were in disbelief. The Americans had not only reached Berlin, they had fought and won over it.
That day marked a turning point in the air war. The Luftwaffe, once feared across Europe, was now bleeding pilots and planes faster than it could replace them. Every time German fighters took off, Mustangs were waiting. The P-51's incredible range allowed American pilots to escort bombers all the way to target and back, and then strafe airfields on the return leg. No part of Germany was safe anymore. The Luftwaffe tried new tactics, ambushes, rocket attacks, and jet interceptors like the Me-262, but it was too late. The skies belonged to the Mustang. From 1944 onward, the Luftwaffe's effectiveness collapsed. Their veteran pilots were gone. Their fuel reserves dwindled. By early 1945, Germany could barely defend its own cities. The long-range Mustang had achieved what bombers alone never could: air supremacy.
When the war ended, the numbers told the story. The P-51 Mustang had destroyed nearly 5,000 enemy aircraft in Europe, more than any other Allied fighter. Its range, speed, and reliability changed the course of the air war. Even the Germans admitted it. Captured Luftwaffe officers described the P-51 as the aircraft that broke the backbone of the German Air Force. The Mustang's 1,650-mile range proved that technology could turn the tide of war. It wasn't just a machine, it was a symbol of American innovation, courage, and endurance. Today, restored Mustangs still fly, their engines roaring at air shows across the world. A living reminder of the day the skies over Berlin belonged not to the Luftwaffe, but to a handful of American pilots and their magnificent machines. They said no fighter could fly to Berlin and back. The Mustang proved them wrong.